Colleen Hufford, age 54, beheaded by a Muslim in Oklahoma. Different members of the press are asking, was this an act of terrorism? I'm here to tell you, they're asking the wrong question.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
This may be the most important program that I have done in a long time to help our viewers understand historic Islam and to help you to connect dots. I have no hidden agenda here, by the way. I have an agenda. The agenda is to accurately report not just the news, but the background, the history, the details that would bring us to this point in time. Clearly by now, you have seen the horrific news that this man, Alton Nolan, age 30, had converted recently to Islam and was preaching to his fellow employees at a food plant. Well, for various reasons, we have not actually heard the details of the reasons, but for various reasons, he was fired. He then returned to his former place of employment, armed with a knife, got in and attacked this poor soul, Colleen Hufford. He stabbed her repeatedly and then proceeded to sever her head from her body. He beheaded her. He then went after 43-year-old Tracy Johnson, stabbing her multiple times. One can only imagine the horror, the visual and audio horror of what was going on. At that point, this man, Mark Vaughn, who is a reserve sheriff's deputy, he was also the company's chief operating officer, he came in and shot him. He shot him more than once and did not kill the murderer, but he shot him and got him to stop. And of course, as should be, he is being heralded as a hero. And there's another narrative we can go into on another day about our need to be able to defend ourselves and carry firearms, but I digress. The question that's being asked, Governor Rick Perry trying to put pressure on Obama, was this an act of terrorism? We don't understand. They're asking the wrong question, okay? And in today's program, I'm going to help you with the right question, all right? And as you watch the program, I want you to see if you can formulate the right question in your head. Now, some of Islam's apologists in the media are doing everything in their power to deflect this away from Islam. It's not working, okay? People are now getting to the point where they don't buy it. For example, the DA in Oklahoma said that he should have been in prison longer because this gentleman this murderer, recently spent almost 2 years in prison for selling cocaine or having cocaine with the intent to sell and having marijuana. So they said, we cut a deal with him. He only had to serve 2 years. We should have kept him in prison longer. It wasn't about the drugs, okay? It wasn't about his nonviolent offense with drugs. It was about his conversion to Islam. Now, other apologists for Islam are saying, and I quote one of the sources, there is so far no evidence to suggest that Alton Nolan, the man who is accused of beheading a coworker in Moore, Oklahoma Friday, has any formal connection with terror groups. This is actually a key point. Now again, we're trying to formulate what is the right question, okay? He had no formal connection with terrorist groups. None. He wasn't trained by them. He wasn't a member. He had never gone to Afghanistan to be trained by Al-Qaeda. never gone to Syria to be trained by ISIS. And yet, he beheaded this woman who had rejected his evangelistic efforts for Islam. Why? Friend, in their desperate effort to say that only Islamic terrorists would commit such acts, they've actually proved the point. You don't have to become a member of a terrorist group. All you have to do is to read the historic narrative of the founder of Islam, Muhammad. When we come back from this break, I will walk you through some of the events in Muhammad's life, events that this murderer had read, events that the Quran and Islamic history herald as great and awesome victories for Islam. And as he read this history, he simply mimicked Muhammad. Evidently, you don't have to become a part of a terrorist group. You simply have to study the life of Muhammad.
You have two choices. I mean, you can try to raise your children by design, or you will raise them by default. There are no perfect parents. We're going to get it wrong sometimes. If we have a plan, we've got a better chance of getting it right in the long run.
There is something deep within the heart of every human being that longs for parental acceptance and approval. When does a boy become a man?
Get a group of guys around and ask them that question.
I don't think there's a certain age. Some men stay boys their whole life.
I would say, 16, 18 years old.
Wow, that's a good question.
When they get bar mitzvah.
Well, I think when he has a child. So I just became at 56, 56 years old.
Without the power of the Holy Spirit changing us and giving us power over our sin, we can't hope to be the dads that our kids need us to be.
Was this horrific beheading in Oklahoma an act of terrorism? I submit to you, it is the wrong question. Now, I want to go back in history. If you're a Christian, if I said to you, what's the Sermon on the Mount? Where's the Sermon on the Mount recorded? What was Christ's first public miracle? What did Jesus say to the repentant sinner on the cross? If I started to pull these questions out of you, you'd say, oh yeah, I know that one. Oh yeah, I know that one. What happened when when Jesus was walking on the water? And Peter said, and then Jesus said, and then what happened with Peter? All right, you following me? Your mind would go, I know that, I know that, I know that. We don't know the details of Muhammad's life as Westerners. They know the details of Muhammad's life, all right? Like we know the details of Christ's life, whether it's from Sunday school stories when we were kids or from devout study of the scriptures now as adults, okay? So when this man, Alton Nolan, converted to Islam, he did what many adults who convert to Christianity do. Okay, you've heard the testimonies. Guys go to their hotel room, they pick up a Gideon's Bible, they start reading the Gospels, and they become convicted of their sins. They turn to Christ for forgiveness, and they say, I'm a new man. They've had a conversion, okay? And then they start this intense Bible study, and they start telling people about the Lord, the zeal of the new convert, all right? Well, this man, this murderer, had recently become a Muslim, and what did he do? Well, he did what any new convert would do. He started studying the life of his hero, Muhammad. He started reading the histories of Islam. He started reading the writings of those who explained Islam and the goals of Islam. And he started to dress like a Muslim. And he went to the mosque. It's almost funny what the reaction from the people in the mosque was about this man. Let me read to you a couple of their quotes. A spokesman for an Oklahoma Oklahoma City Islamic groups had said that Nolan was a frequent worshiper at a mosque the group maintains, and that he remembers the suspect as a little weird. And then Mr. Syed Mohammed went on to say, he was a nice, quiet, low-key guy. He acted a little odd, Mohammed said, though he added that Nolan's behavior never raised any red flags. Well, forgive me, but it begs the question, did they ever talk about what Nolan was reading? Did he ever talk about who his friends were on Facebook? Did he discuss ISIS or Al-Qaeda or the Muslims that are trying to throw the infidels out of their lands? Well, yeah, sure, normal conversation with Muslims, but nothing a little weird. I mean, nothing, no red flags. The narrative of Muhammad's life is so stark and so other to us that unless we read that narrative and study that narrative, we will never understand what's going on. So let me make a point. The Battle of Badr is considered a seminal moment in Islamic history. It was the first major battle that Muhammad and his troops won. There were 300 of them. They had about 100 camels and 2 horses. And they were fighting 1,000 Meccans who were heavily armed and had heavy cavalry. All right? In a situation like that, the Meccans should have destroyed the Muslims. Muhammad, the night before the battle, prayed all night and then made all these claims to his followers that if they would fight and die in battle, that they would receive paradise immediately. Well, at the Battle of Badr, the Muslims won. Okay? And then fast forward to a few years ago when Nicholas Berg had his head cut off. The murderer said, God has left us an example in the blessed prophet with the slow cutting of the prisoners' necks at the Battle of Badr. The murderer referred back to Badr. Badr is to the Muslim world what the changing the water into wine is for the Christian world. It's the testimonial miracle from God himself that this is the prophet. For Christianity, it's that this is the Son of God. For Islam, it's that this is the prophet. And the men who died in the Battle of Badr, who were Muhammad's followers, are all considered martyred. They have the honor of martyrs. Their names are kept, and it is this glorious seminal moment. But remember, they decapitated, they sawed the necks, they cut the heads off of their prisoners, according to al-Zarqawi. So if Muhammad was alive today, and we studied him, and he duplicated his acts at the Battle of Badr, or the Battle of Uhud, or the battle, or the treatment of the Jews at Banu Qurayza, the Jews who he ordered to be decapitated, between 600 and 900 men, from their teenage years all the way to old men, stooped with age. When he sat there and had ditches dug and had their heads cut off one at a time and then their bodies pushed into these ditches. The texts say that Muhammad made an end of them. They were brought in batches to the apostle and he struck off their heads. Okay? The text puts Muhammad right in the middle of that. So if Muhammad was alive today, in Iraq, in Syria, and did the exact same things that he did when he was here on this earth, would we say this is a terrorist attack? What would we call him? Would we call him a freedom fighter? Would we call him a guerrilla warrior? Would we call him something else? The question, is this a terrorist attack, is the wrong question. I will tell you the right question when we come back from this break. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. The media wants to know Governor Rick Perry is putting pressure on President Obama to make some public comment about this horrific beheading in Oklahoma. And they're asking, was this a terrorist attack? It's the wrong question. I'm going to tell you the right question. And you can rephrase this question any way that you want. Was this beheading an act of Islamic devotion? Was this beheading an act of Islamic devotion to Allah, to God? Another question would be, was the murderer trying to imitate the deeds of Muhammad? Was the man who beheaded this poor woman trying to imitate the deeds of Muhammad? Let me read to you the words of S.A. Negosian, who is a Muslim scholar regarding Muhammad and his life. He said, the Islamic devotion to the Sunnah or the Hadith, or the traditions of the Prophet, as they are also called. And by the way, we've covered this in other shows. If you need to learn more, go to our website, voiceofresistance.com, and read the material there, look at the history. The traditions of the Prophet, that refers to the deeds that Muhammad did in his life that are not recorded in the Quran, or the things that he said. Okay? The Islamic devotion to the Sunnah or the Hadith, or the traditions of the Prophet, as they are also called, is universal, from small and great, rich and poor, layman and cleric, subject and ruler. The Hadith has been to Muslims as vital a source of spiritual guidance as the Quran. For Muslims to reject the Hadith, that means to reject the traditions of Muhammad, the things that Muhammad did, the things that Muhammad said, okay? For Muslims to reject the Hadith is to reject the Quran. Hadith, the Quran, and the Prophet Muhammad are inseparable. They're inseparable, okay? So for the Monday morning quarterback, or for the blathering, well-meaning, foolish media commentator who does not know Islamic history, does not study the Hadith, has never read the canonical histories of Muhammad's life, they don't even know what questions to ask. We're being duped. We're being deluded. We're being deceived by people that are frantic to make Islam in their own image. Frantic to say Islam is a peaceful religion. Frantic to say that this was not a terrorist attack because he wasn't connected with any terrorist group. They're all missing the point, okay? The point is the traditions of the Prophet, as they call them. Now I will read to you from the Quran. Surah, that's their word for chapter 8, chapter 8, verse 12. When your Lord revealed to the angels, I am with you, therefore make firm those who believe. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. Again, this is God speaking in the first person. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. Therefore, strike off their heads and strike off every fingertip of them. So here we have Allah in the first person saying that he will strike terror in the hearts of those who don't believe and ordering his followers to cut off the heads of unbelievers. It's not that it's a terrorist attack. It's that terror is used in the Islamic scheme. Fear is used. Dismay is used to bring about conversion or obedience and submission. That's the issue. And so ask yourself this question. How many people do you know right now, for example, that will speak publicly about Muhammad being someone who cut people's heads off? Muhammad being somebody who ordered the murder of innocent people? How many of you will talk about that? How many people do you know that will talk about it publicly? Most people won't. Right now, they won't. Because they're afraid. Because terror has been struck in their heart because of the beheadings. This is exactly what they want. This is exactly the purpose in the Mohammedan scheme of what they want. So the question is not, was this a terrorist attack? The question is, and will be, was this an act of Islamic devotion? I have been a leader in the pro-life movement for 30 years. And sadly, we have not prevailed in our goal to make it a criminal act to kill an unborn baby. There's reasons why we have failed. I wrote this book, A Humble Plea, to Catholic bishops, to evangelical clergy, and to lay people, explaining where we went wrong and what we have to do to prevail. We've made this available as a PDF online for free. I encourage you to go and download your own copy. We have put together what we call an online university for you. Now that's a highfalutin way of saying that we have a pretty significant library of material, books, tapes, videos that are there for you for free. Why are we doing this? Because America is desperate for new leaders, and because this material could help you to become the leader that you and God want you to be. Check it out and enjoy it. As we conclude this show, I want to again encourage you to go to our website if you have the interest and the patience to really read and to really learn about Islamic history. We have the data there for you in very non-sectarian, non-angry tones. It's just there, okay? We let Islam speak for itself. So many people are asking, was this beheading a terrorist attack? And another question might be, ready? Was it an act of evangelism? Now, I know that some people think that's crazy, but if you understand the history of Muhammad and the history of Islam, that's what could have been in Alton Nolan's mind. It's certainly what's in ISIS warrior/terrorist minds. Listen to this story. There was a time when Muhammad said, kill any Jew that falls into your hands in Medina. He just ordered people to randomly murder Jews, okay? Well, a Jew got murdered by a man who was a business associate, and his brother said to him, you enemy of God, did you kill him when much of the fat on your belly comes from his wealth? His brother answered, had the one who ordered me to kill him ordered me to kill you, I would have cut your head off. The older brother replied, by God, if Muhammad had ordered you to kill me, would you have killed me? He said, yes, by God, had he ordered me to cut off your head, I would have done so. And then the older brother exclaimed, by God, a religion that can bring you to this is marvelous. And he became a Muslim. They view this as an act of evangelism, okay? Just think about it. the fear that this older brother felt, that his younger brother would have cut off his head, made him say, okay, I'm in. I'm a Muslim. It was an act of Islamic evangelism. God save us.